Hi everyone, so today's video, we're going to be talking about the case of Chelsea Poorman. This is an incredibly heartbreaking case. This poor woman went through a lot in her life, and she managed to overcome it, but her life was still sadly taken from her, and her family has been fighting for answers, and they have just been treated horribly by police. It's absolutely mind-boggling the treatment that they've received. I actually learned about this case from Kendall Ray because about a month ago she posted a video about Chelsea. And when I watched it, I knew that I immediately wanted to talk about Chelsea as well. So I did my own research, and all the links that I use for research will be down below. If I sound like I'm frustrated at any point, this is the 5th time I've had to start this video over because I kept messing up what I was saying. My notes, I didn't realize that I had them in such a bad, I just could not read my own handwriting of my own notes. So this is the millionth time that I'm starting over. But we're going to get through it, and we're going to talk about Chelsea today. So, Chelsea had moved to Vancouver from Saskatchewan in the summer of 2020 following her mom Sheila and her sister Paige. The family is actually from the Kawakatus First Nation. So, Chelsea managed to persevere through many obstacles in her life. She went through so much, like I said, and some of this was overcoming serious injuries from a car accident and mental health issues. And she actually had a limp, other physical disabilities, but she also had a brain injury that she was also dealing with. And I believe I read that she had also been assaulted when she was a little bit younger. So that is also incredibly sad. So she went through all of this, but despite those challenges, she was described as happy and positive and strong. Sheila, her mother, says that she being Chelsea, showed kindness to those that were less fortunate and that she loved animals. And we actually have a quote from Sheila. She says, Chelsea wanted to be a veterinarian or paramedic, musician, artist, fashion designer, or makeup artist. She had so much to live for when her life was taken. End quote. So on September 6th, Chelsea and Paige went out to dinner together and then to a friend's apartment at Granville and Drake, which are the little streets nearby. Chelsea left the apartment around midnight and later called Paige saying she'd met, quote, a new bae. Sheila would report her daughter missing on September 8th, but police wouldn't issue a press release about Chelsea being missing until several days later after the missing persons report. The press release would go out on September 18th, a full 11 days later, an 11-day gap. And we're talking about someone who's been missing for a while now. And instead of immediately talking about that, they wait a full 11 days. And she also has disabilities, so she's already high risk. But let's talk more about why it was not normal for them to just wait that long. So this is a quote from Sheila. And she says, I would watch the news and notice that others go missing, but they were on the news, and the Vancouver Police Department also made a press release for them the same day, end quote. And when a missing persons report press releases hits new inboxes, Metro Vancouver's news media and usually post a quick write-up on their website and social media accounts did not do that for Chelsea whatsoever. So, like I said, Chelsea had both a physical disability and a brain injury, and she was also an Indigenous woman. So those were all factors that should have led to her being flagged as a high-risk missing person by police, which would require an immediate public appeal to locate her. They just didn't do that. They just waited a full 11 days. So, not only were those reasons making her high risk, but this was also the second time that Chelsea had gone missing after moving to Vancouver. The first time she went missing, she made contact after 5 days, and I believe in an article I read, she said it's because her phone died and she misplaced her phone or something like that. But she did eventually get in contact with her family. So her previous disappearance should have been taken as a warning sign that she was at increased risk if she went missing again. But it wasn't taken as seriously as it should have been. So, Vancouver Police Department, they say they did diligently investigate Chelsea's disappearance, but Sheila and Paige say that they felt often dismissed by officers, and they actually had to contact the officers themselves for updates. And I see this in all the videos. It grinds my gears when families have to call them. Like, I know officers are busy, all this, but still, you should take the time to call the family and let them know if there was a change. Why should the family have to do this themselves? You know what I'm saying? So the case was transferred to the VPD's Major Crime Section in November of 2020, and the Major Crime Sections, they say, quote, that they took numerous investigative steps, end quote, including conducting interviews, checking bank and cell phone records, and conducting an extensive video canvass. However, the family remains skeptical that the police ever sought video footage from Granville at all. The family just believes, like, they just did not do much at all. And they just felt really dismissed, which I can believe by what I was reading. So, sadly, on April 23rd of 2022, Chelsea's body was found outside an empty mansion near 36th Avenue in Granville, and she was actually found by a construction worker. So, VPD says she likely died on or near the property the night she disappeared. Sheila says that when Chelsea was found, this is incredibly gruesome, but she was missing several fingers and part of her skull. Her cell phone wasn't found with her body and was later traced to Victory Square in Vancouver. The neighborhood she was found in was among the richest in Canada, actually. And Sheila doesn't understand how Chelsea, who wore a leg brace and had rods in her arm and leg, ended up on the vacant property, or that her body went unnoticed by neighbors for so long. Because when you look at pictures of this empty mansion, there are very high gates. It's a nice neighborhood. It's an empty house, so there's going to be gates. So how did she, who has a limp, who has a leg brace, who has hardware in her body, how is she going to get into the property by herself? It's mind-boggling to me. And how did the neighbors just not like notice a smell or anything like that? Because from everything I've heard, a dead body does not smell like a dead animal. It's described as a very unique smell. And if I had smelled a dead body, something would tip me off and I would feel the need to either investigate myself and see what the hell is going on or to call the police if I'm really, really worried. So I agree. I don't understand how nobody noticed anything. So, investigators don't believe that her death was suspicious. Yeah, they don't think this is suspicious at all. Her phone wasn't with her body. She somehow managed to get into this empty property with all this hardware in her body. She's missing several fingers. She's missing part of her skull. But that's not suspicious, right? That's just not suspicious at all. Sergeant Steve Addison says that because her remains were essentially skeletal, it's unlikely that cause of death will ever be determined. And he also says the body was found in the backyard, which was overgrown and unkempt, which is why it would have taken so long to find her. Still, nobody noticed a smell or anything else going on. Nothing. I don't think that she just went to that property and died. So someone had to have either killed her there or have put her there, and nobody noticed anybody going into this vacant mansion. Nobody noticed anything. You're in a really rich neighborhood. Rich people, they pay attention to their shit. You're telling me that nobody noticed anything? And I'm still caught up that they don't think this was suspicious. It's just weird. Weird to me. So, her body, like I said, was found on April 22nd. Sheila says that they weren't notified for 2 weeks, a full 14 days for the family to be told that their daughter had been found deceased. 2 weeks. I just did a case about Lauren Smith Fields, and I was upset that it took 1 day for the police to tell the family. And the police didn't even tell the family. The family had to call and find out themselves. And it's just mind-boggling that the family is never the first to be notified. And this is a quote from Sheila. She says, "They said that they wanted to make sure 100% that it was her. She had the same clothing. They know that Chelsea had hardware in her body." End quote. Exactly. This girl is missing. They know she's missing. They find a body. They know what clothes she was wearing. The skeletal remains had those clothes, and it also had hardware in its body like Chelsea. I don't know about you, but I would put two and two together. And even if they wanted to make 100% sure, I completely understand that. But 2 weeks? It took you 2 weeks to make sure that was Chelsea? Something about that just does not sit right with me. What were they doing for 2 weeks? I really want to know. What took them so long to figure it out? So, if I haven't talked much about, like, actual investigations, like suspects or anything like that, because I couldn't find anything, because they didn't think the death was suspicious. They just didn't investigate. They said they did. They said they looked for surveillance and looked at records. Um, and this is what we're left with. Absolutely no answers as to why Chelsea was missing body parts and pieces of her skull. Her skeletal remains was found in the backyard of an empty mansion. That's just not suspicious, and we just don't have answers for that. I am so upset because I don't know how anyone could think that that was an accident or suicide or anything like that. And it would be different if they didn't, if they just said, well, it can't, the death can't be determined. They made it a point to say that they didn't find it suspicious, which is what really bothers me. I can understand that skeletal remains can be hard to identify, and normally you can't determine a cause of death that way. But come on. You know what I'm saying? Come on. So, the Union of BC Indian Chiefs, or UBIC, and the Federation of Indigenous Nations, which represents 74 First Nations in Saskatchewan, issued statements calling for the Vancouver Police Department to apologize to the family and to continue their investigation. And we actually are going to end this video with a quote from UBIC. And they say, "The abrupt halt of the case from the VPD is emblematic of the absolute crisis of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls." End quote. This is a case that clearly shows the lack of empathy, the lack of care, the lack of diligence that police has in Canada for Indigenous people. This case shows how much they don't actually want to do their jobs, how much they don't actually care about these people. It's just proof that there is, in fact, a crisis of missing and murdered Indigenous women. This case is just proof, because how can you look at this case, know the facts of this case, and be absolutely supportive of the police department? How? She was missing parts of her body. She was found in the backyard of an abandoned mansion in a neighborhood she did not live in. And how? That is just, the question is how? Who did this to her? Because I don't believe it was an accident, and I don't believe she did it to herself. So, who did this? How did she end up there? Was that where she was killed? How did her phone end up in Victory Square? How did it take 2 weeks for her to be identified, supposedly? How did it take that long for the family to receive any answers? Just how? How is the question? She was failed in every possible way by the police department. And they could investigate now, but it would not make up for what they've done, which was absolutely nothing. I truly hope that something flips a switch and VPD's ass, and Chelsea's case can be properly investigated by people who actually give a shit. I hope that there is something that shows up that shows what actually happened to her. That way, justice can be properly given. Chelsea was a real human being. She was a lovely human being. She went through so much just for her to lose her life. And for her case to not even be handled with empathy is beyond disgusting. She deserves to be properly laid to rest. And there is someone out there that knows something, that did something to her, and they need to be found. Chelsea's family, they deserve actual answers about what happened to their daughter. They deserve to watch this person go to prison. And they deserve just all of the love and support in the world, and they just have not gotten that. I have seen comments that some people think that it could have been one of VPD's own, and this isn't like from the family, by the way. This is just from comments about the case itself. And I agree. In cases where police don't really do a whole lot, it kind of makes you wonder, are they covering for one of their own? Because we've seen it before, in numerous cases, that cops are, a lot of the time, absolutely disgusting individuals. And it wouldn't be surprising if it was a VPD police officer that did something. It could also have been just a crime of opportunity. But either way, something happened to Chelsea when she went missing, and we might not ever know because proper steps weren't taken. But I hope that something will happen, that she gets the justice that she deserves. Thank you so much for listening to Chelsea's story. Let me know what you think down below. Honestly, like I said, I don't know who could have done that to her, but I don't think it was an accident. There was no way she ended up there herself, and that's just what I think. So let me know what you think down below. If Chelsea's family sees this video, I am so sorry about your loss and what you've had to go through. You have deserved so much better, and I hope that proper steps are taken for you and your family, and I hope that Chelsea's case can be properly laid to rest. Thank you so much for listening to Chelsea's story, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye, guys.